Here is a comprehensive book summary of the core principles and practices from How to Listen, Hear, and Validate. The journey toward truly understanding another human being begins with a quiet revolution within ourselves, a fundamental shift from a mindset of reaction to one of reception. Most of us operate under the illusion that we are good listeners, believing that because we can hear the words spoken to us and recall them later, we have fulfilled our duty in a conversation. Yet, true listening is an act of profound courage and empathy that extends far beyond the passive reception of sound waves. It is an active, intentional, and often challenging practice of fully immersing oneself in the subjective world of another person, setting aside our own autobiography, our judgments, and our desire to fix, in order to simply be with them in their experience. This book is a deep exploration of that practice, dissecting the subtle yet powerful differences between merely hearing the words someone says and truly listening to the meaning behind them, and ultimately, the transformative act of validation that can heal rifts, build unshakable trust, and make others feel profoundly seen and understood. To grasp the full power of this skill set, we must first understand what we are up against. The common conception of listening is tragically anemic. We often engage in conversations not with the intent to understand, but with the intent to reply. Our minds are busy formulating our next clever point, our piece of advice, our own related story that we are eager to share the moment the other person takes a breath. This is not listening, it is simply waiting for our turn to talk. We engage in selective listening, tuning in only to the parts that confirm our own beliefs or that we find interesting, while filtering out the rest. We practice defensive listening, where we perceive every word as a potential attack or criticism, preparing our counter-arguments instead of seeking to comprehend the other's perspective. These habitual patterns are the default setting for most human communication, and they are the primary reason why so many of our interactions feel shallow, frustrating, and disconnected. We are surrounded by people who are starving to be heard, yet we offer them only a distracted ear and a ready-made solution. The first and most crucial step in breaking these patterns is to understand the critical hierarchy of communication, which ascends from the basic act of hearing to the advanced art of validation. Hearing is the physiological and neurological process of sound perception. It is the passive, involuntary act of your eardrums vibrating and your brain registering noise. Listening, however, is the active process of paying attention to those sounds, interpreting them, and assigning meaning. It requires focus and intention. But the pinnacle of compassionate communication, the goal this book strives toward, is validation. Validation is the conscious, empathetic act of acknowledging, understanding, and accepting another person's internal emotional experience as being real, meaningful, and worthy of attention. It is the message that says, your feelings make sense. Your perspective, though it may differ from mine, is valid. You are not crazy for feeling what you feel. This triad, hearing, listening, and validating, forms the backbone of a communication style that can mend relationships and foster deep, authentic connection. Why is validation so powerful? Its impact is both psychological and relational. On a psychological level, when a person's feelings are invalidated, when they are told, you shouldn't feel that way, it's not a big deal, or, just get over it, a profound cognitive dissonance occurs. Their internal reality is denied by the external world, leading them to question their own sanity, their perceptions, and their self-worth. Over time, chronic invalidation is a breeding ground for anxiety, depression, and a deep-seated sense of isolation. Validation does the opposite. It acts as an emotional mirror, confirming for the individual that their inner world is real and comprehensible. This simple act can de-escalate intense emotional storms, reduce physiological stress, and provide a profound sense of relief and solidarity. On a relational level, validation is the bedrock of trust and safety. When you consistently validate someone, you are building a sanctuary for them. They learn that they can come to you with their vulnerability without fear of judgment, dismissal, or unsolicited advice. This creates a bond of immense strength and intimacy, whether in romantic partnerships, friendships, family dynamics, or professional settings. Before we can effectively offer this gift to others, we must first cultivate the proper inner foundation. The mindset of a true listener is one of radical presence and open-hearted curiosity. It requires the suspension of what the psychologist Carl Rogers called the internal evaluative chorus. This is that constant, internal voice that assesses everything we hear. That's a stupid idea. He's wrong about that. I would have handled that much better. To listen is to quiet this chorus, to deliberately step out of the role of judge and jury and into the role of an explorer. Your sole task is to explore the universe of the other person. This demands a stance of genuine curiosity, a sincere desire to know what it feels like to be in their skin, to see the world through their eyes. It also requires a fundamental acceptance of the person as they are in that moment, not as you wish they would be. This does not mean you agree with everything they say or condone every action, but that you accept that their feelings and perceptions are their current reality. Furthermore, you must temporarily relinquish your own ego and your desire to be the hero. The urge to fix, solve, and advise is often more about our own need to feel competent and helpful than it is about the other person's need to be understood. The most generous thing you can often do is to resist this urge and simply hold space for their experience. With this mindset firmly in place, we can turn our attention to the practical, behavioral skills of deep listening. The foundation of all these skills is full, undivided attention. In a world of endless distractions, giving someone your complete focus is a rare and valuable gift. This means putting away your phone, turning off the television, and making eye contact. It means orienting your body toward the speaker in a way that signals openness and engagement. Your nonverbal communication often speaks louder than your words. A relaxed but alert posture, occasional nodding, and facial expressions that reflect empathy and concern all convey the message, "I am here with you. You have my complete attention." The opposite, fidgeting, looking at your watch, crossing your arms tightly, or having a blank expression, can shut down a conversation before it even begins, communicating boredom, impatience, or disapproval. Once you are fully present, the primary tool at your disposal is the art of the reflective response. This is the mechanism by which you demonstrate that you are not only hearing the words but are actively tracking the meaning and emotion behind them. The simplest form of this is paraphrasing, which involves restating the core content of what the speaker has said in your own words. The purpose is not to parrot them back verbatim, but to check for understanding. A paraphrase might begin with, "So, if I'm understanding you correctly. You're saying that," or, "Let me see if I've got this right." The main issue is that this gives the speaker a chance to clarify if you have missed the point. A more profound level of reflection involves mirroring feelings. This is where you identify and name the emotion you believe the speaker is experiencing. For example, if a friend is describing a frustrating situation at work, you might respond with, "It sounds like that left you feeling completely exasperated and powerless." When you accurately name an emotion, it has a powerful validating effect. It shows you are listening not just to the events, but to the human experiencing those events. Beyond reflection, the use of skillful questions is essential to draw out deeper understanding. However, not all questions are created equal. Open-ended questions are the engine of deep listening. These are questions that cannot be answered with a simple yes or no, and they invite elaboration, reflection, and storytelling. Questions like, "What was that like for you? How did you feel when that happened?" Or, "What's your perspective on all of this?" encourage the speaker to explore and share their inner world. In contrast, closed-ended questions, which seek specific, factual answers, can often derail an emotional conversation and bring it back to a superficial, informational level. Leading questions, those that imply a desired answer, should be avoided as they steer the conversation toward your agenda, not theirs. The goal of questioning in this context is not to interrogate, but to invite. It is to open doors for the speaker to walk through, showing them that you are interested in the full landscape of their experience. As we practice these skills, we must also be acutely aware of the common barriers and counterfeit forms of listening that masquerade as support. One of the most prevalent and damaging habits is the tendency to immediately offer advice or solutions. When someone shares a problem, our instinct is often to be the hero who rides in with the perfect fix. We say, "Well, have you tried?" Or, "You should just." This response, though well-intentioned, implicitly invalidates their experience. It sends the message that their problem is a simple puzzle to be solved, not a complex human experience to be processed. It robs them of the opportunity to sit with their feelings, to find their own resilience, and to arrive at their own solutions. Another common barrier is one-upping, where we respond to someone's story by immediately launching into our own, often more dramatic, tale. "You think that's bad? Let me tell you what happened to me." This instantly shifts the focus from their experience to ours, making them feel that their problem is insignificant. Similarly, rehearsing is when we are so busy formulating our own response that we stop listening altogether. Psychologizing, or amateur psychoanalysis, where we diagnose the speaker, "You're just saying that because you have a fear of commitment," creates a power imbalance and makes them feel objectified and analyzed. Minimizing or silver lining, with phrases like, "Look on the bright side," Or, it could be worse, dismisses their pain and tells them they are wrong for feeling it. Learning to recognize and silence these ingrained habits is a critical part of becoming a genuine listener. The ultimate expression of this practice is the act of validation itself. It is important to clarify that validating someone's feelings is not the same as agreeing with their actions or their interpretation of events. You can validate the emotion without endorsing the behavior. For instance, if a child is angry that their sibling broke their toy, you can validate the feeling of anger and disappointment without validating them hitting their sibling. The core of validation is communicating that given their perspective and their unique makeup, their emotional response is understandable. The language of validation is specific and empathetic. It uses phrases that acknowledge the feeling head-on. I can see why you would feel that way. That sounds incredibly frustrating, saddening, frightening. It makes complete sense that you would react like that, given what you've been through. Thank you for sharing that with me. I can only imagine how hard that must be. The power of these statements lies in their focus on the speaker's internal reality. They are not about you, your opinion, or your solutions. They are a pure reflection of acceptance for their emotional truth. Validating in the midst of conflict is perhaps the most difficult, yet most transformative, application of this skill. When we are in a disagreement, our instinct is to defend, to prove our point, and to win the argument. The idea of validating the person we are fighting with can feel like surrender. However, this is a profound misunderstanding. Validation is not capitulation. It is a strategic and compassionate move to de-escalate the emotional charge and create a space where real problem solving can occur. In a conflict, before you state your own case, try to truly understand and validate the other person's position. So, from your point of view, when I came home late without calling, it felt like I was being disrespectful and didn't care about your plans. Is that right? I can understand why that would make you feel hurt and angry. This does not mean you agree that you were disrespectful, it means you understand that from their perspective, that is a logical conclusion. When people feel heard and validated, their defensiveness melts away. The amygdala, the brain's threat alarm, calms down. They become less entrenched in their position and more capable of hearing your perspective in return. It transforms the dynamic from a me versus you battle into an us versus the problem collaboration. The principles of listening and validation are universal, but their application must be tailored to different types of relationships. In romantic partnerships, these skills are the lifeblood of intimacy. Couples who feel heard and validated by each other build a reservoir of goodwill and trust that can withstand the inevitable stresses of life. For them, listening is not about resolving a specific issue, but about maintaining the emotional connection that is the foundation of the relationship. In parent-child dynamics, validation is a critical tool for emotional coaching. When a parent validates a child's big feelings, their tantrum over a broken cookie, their fear of the dark, they are not spoiling the child. They are teaching the child that their emotions are valid and manageable, building their emotional intelligence and self-esteem from the ground up. In the workplace, while the context is different, the human need for being heard remains. A manager who listens and validates their team members' concerns about a new policy or their frustrations with a project fosters loyalty, psychological safety, and a culture of open communication, which in turn drives innovation and problem solving. Even in casual friendships, being a person who others know they can turn to for a non-judgmental ear is what creates deep and lasting bonds. Embarking on the path to becoming a better listener and validator is a lifelong practice of unlearning old habits and consciously cultivating new ones. It is a journey fraught with stumbling blocks. You will find yourself zoning out in the middle of a conversation, only to jerk back to attention. You will catch yourself launching into a story about yourself when you meant to be asking about the other person. You will feel the powerful urge to give advice when what is needed is silent presence. The key is not to expect perfection, but to practice self-compassion. Each time you notice you have strayed from the path, gently guide yourself back without self-flagellation. This is a skill like any other, built through repetition and patience. Start small. Choose one conversation a day where you commit to practicing just one of these skills, perhaps giving your full attention or trying to reflect back feelings. Notice the difference it makes, both in the response of the other person and in your own sense of connection. In the end, the ability to listen, to truly hear, and to genuinely validate is more than a communication technique. It is a profound act of love and respect. It is a radical affirmation of another person's humanity. In a world that is often loud, dismissive, and isolating, offering someone your quiet, focused, and accepting presence is one of the greatest gifts you can give. It builds bridges across chasms of misunderstanding, heals old wounds, and fosters the kind of deep, authentic relationships that form the core of a meaningful life. This book is not merely a manual for better conversations, it is an invitation to become a sanctuary for others, a calm harbor in their emotional storms. By learning to listen with our whole being, we do more than just understand the words of others, we help them feel, in the deepest possible way, that they are not alone.